Bum 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 bum. The Peter Like Show. Bum 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 bum. About a year ago, I was living with quite a few housemates, and the owner of the place. I found the place on Airbnb. The owner of the place had hired her nephew to manage the place. Her nephew was, I want to say, in his 40s, was African American, and I got along with all of the housemates. The only mistake I made was that I had a crush on one of the housemates, and but it didn't turn toxic or anything. It's just that I missed multiple opportunities to get things going with her. Granted, I was really busy at the time. The other mistake I made was that I had very little financial and personal security at the time. The housemate, the manager of the place, uh, had a very toxic way of dealing with things. He lived in an adjoining place from the kitchen, and there was only a curtain separating the kitchen with his sleeping area, and he was really sensitive to noise. And for some reason, he picked on me. I would often come back from work late. I had a class that ended at 8 p.m., and sometimes I had other activities after that. Sometimes I would get in the door 10:30, 11, and then I'd be cooking dinner and all that. And he would complain about the noise. We're talking about tiptoeing around the house. We're talking about maybe using the toilet. We're talking about cooking kind of noises. And he like I said, he had a curtain separating his living area from the kitchen. And I'm thinking to myself, gee, you took the job knowing the living situation, right? Imagine taking some kind of noisy job or some kind of job where you know there's something about the environment and then complaining about it, right? Now, this would have not been so big a deal, except at the time, and still today, I don't have a whole lot of housing security. So I hear something like that and I start to get nervous. I got a lot of stuff in the house, a lot of things that I hold near and dear. And if something were to go bad and I have to move in a hurry, I wouldn't. And also, I was really busy at the time. At least I'm not so busy today. How it's going to interrupt my work, and I have good rapport with my students, and having an interruption like suddenly losing my housing often will affect my performance at work, and so it created a lot of edginess. One day we were showing the place to new prospective roommates. I was talking to the roommates about the place, and I didn't realize the apartment manager, Mark, he was around. He was hidden behind the curtain, and he I was talking to the people who were looking at the place and talking about my experience there. It's good walking distance to blah and blah, and this and that, and just be mindful of your schedule. If you regularly come in after 9 p.m., sometimes a Mark can get really sensitive to noise. Mark burst out of his room and starts exclaiming how it's because I did this and that and this and that, and none of it really made any sense. And long story short, we lost those two prospective roommates, and I didn't really think very much of it. I was kind of on the way out of there. We were wrapping up the semester. I was going to move out of there anyway. Didn't really think much of it, but one of my roommates apparently contacted the owner about Mark's outburst, and Mark got fired from managing the place. Now, I was really excited. I was thinking maybe I don't have to move out anymore. Oh, thank God. Except the owner couldn't immediately get Mark to leave because he had tenant rights. He had lived there for 6, 7 months, whatever it was. And so he gave Mark 30 days to. So now not only did we have somebody who was upset about noises, we had a disgruntled employee at the place. And I had to get out of there. But at least the semester was done with. And so At the time, I was driving a Kia Forte that had 180,000 miles. The air conditioning didn't work very well and not very well insulated. Give you an idea, it'd be 120 degrees outside, and as soon as you turned off the car, it was like the car was never on in the first place. The air conditioning was weak, and the car was not very well insulated. And so when I lose my home like that, I'm kind of frantic to look for another place. I ended up in a home in Apache Junction, as you guys may remember. And I had a crush on one of my roommates, and that's the kind of situation that often gets me in trouble. Long story short, I later learned she was taken because she she was pregnant when I first moved there, but she started showing a few months into my move there, and we had a plumbing emergency in the house. The water pipe had burst, and what was really upsetting was our landlord took advantage of my life circumstances. The water pipe had burst a week before Thanksgiving. I was at a Thanksgiving party. I had just met a really nice circle of friends. I was at a Thanksgiving party and I had a really good time. And when I got home, I think Thanksgiving was November 28th last year. When I got home, the landlord asked if I could pay my rent today. She had just spent a lot of money on the water pipe bursting, and I didn't really argue back with her. I paid it without really thinking it through, in large part because I was having such a good day. And it hit me that now looking back, at the time it didn't hit me. Now looking back, it hit me that I let the homeowner know too much about my personal life. And the other big mistake that I made was I didn't really get anything in writing. She was always too busy to put together the lease documents. She wasn't sure when she was moving out of there, and then the water pipe burst, and she had to take care of that. I don't think my pregnant roommate was very happy with her either. On the day of me moving out of there, I had a friend come over to help me. On the day of me moving out of there, nobody was happy about the situation. And long story short, it doesn't help that my grandmother also passed away at the time. I quickly jumped into another difficult ship, and that the saga of my last three homes really showed me how hard it is to find good housing when you're already in bad housing, because you're desperate to jump ship. You jump into the next fire, and I'm really thankful to the God of dislikes that he entrusted me with this car that I have, driving a Honda Civic. Not necessarily the best car in the world, but at least the air conditioning works. And so I'm not desperately jumping ship from one bad place to another. Last week I went to visit another possible future roommate, and I realized that he was complaining about his previous roommates, and I envisioned him complaining about me like that, and I was like, gee, that's a little bit too much. And I said thank you very much, and I shook his hand, and I walked out of there and went to sleep in my car, and I had a really good dream that night. And so now I have room to play with, and when I do finally move into that place, a couple weeks ago I was at an Airbnb, and I didn't want to put too much personal stuff in the room because I worried if I got into a disagreement with the roommate, I want to be able to get out of there. I don't want to feel threatened when my roommate threatens to remove me from there. I want it to be okay, this isn't going to work, and be able to shake hands with him and walk out of there. Right? So I'm going to have to think hard the next time I move somewhere. I really love my art projects. I really love decorating the place, but it gives me a lot of anxiety every time I may have to potentially leave a place. Or when I was in Taiwan, I didn't have a whole lot of gear in any of the apartments I was in. And so every time I got into a difficult conversation, I didn't really get into serious disagreement. Every time I got into a situation with the owner of the place, a roommate, the situation, or the fact that it wasn't in the best location, or whatever the issue is, I could use my brain to deal with it instead of my gut, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.